Rock left an indelible impression. In 1918, United States Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said that words are not crystals, transparent and unchanging. Rather, they are the skin of living thoughts, whose color and content vary greatly according to the way they're used. Sort of a deep thought, but I think that probably I can demonstrate what Justice Holmes was getting at by telling you a story that happened in a courtroom right here in Overland Park, Kansas. We have a judge in Overland Park, Kansas. She's now in the Court of Appeals, but at the time she's very conscientious. And she realized that in her courtroom, increasingly, there was a lot of folks who didn't speak English, particularly Spanish-speaking people. And so she took it upon herself in her 50s to learn Spanish, because when the translators would come into the courtroom to translate for people so that they would understand the consequences and what was about to happen to them, she would always use the same words in English, but noticed that the translators would mix it up and use different words. And so she grew concerned that they weren't telling these folks exactly what she was saying. Well, after learning Spanish, she started feeling pretty comfortable about it. She started being able to communicate to people about the concepts and about the things that were happening to them and correct the translators when they were wrong. Well, one time, a man came in impromptu for a hearing, and he was a Spanish-speaking man, and he appeared before her, and the translator was not available. And so she decided, well, I'm going to test my skills, and we'll do this entire hearing, and I'll be able to communicate with this man. So she's explaining to this man about the consequences of his actions and what's about to happen to him, and it's an arraignment, and how she's going to put him on a bond, but all he has to do is give his fingerprints to this officer, because there's certain traffic offenses in Kansas for which you have to turn over your fingerprints once you've been arrested for that particular crime. And it was just a traffic offense, and it's not that big a deal. You just give your fingerprints to the government, and they keep them in the event that you're later turned up as another in another situation, another crime. So she's explaining to this man in Spanish that he's got to give his fingerprints to the police officers, that they're going to take him and get his fingerprints. And this guy becomes agitated. He gets so irate, he starts freaking out. And she's thinking, wow, what in the world is wrong with him? So the more she tries to describe and tell this man what's happening, the more agitated he becomes, till eventually the police just haul him off. And she's thinking to herself, well, he's going to turn up on some terrorist list. He didn't want his fingerprints taken. There's something wrong. Well, later that day, she got a telephone call from what apparently was the mother of this man. She deciphered after a long sort of screaming match on the other end of the phone. And it occurred to her, finally, what the problem was. Because you see, in Spanish, the word for fingerprints is very close to a slang word for a man's testicles. Can you imagine what this man thought was going to happen to him for a minor traffic infraction? Bienvenidos, muchachos. Break our laws, we take your manhood. It didn't seem to be one of those situations that you would anticipate, but Justice Holmes got it right, that was the skin, at least, of a living thought. The truth of the matter is that this sort of thing, this cross-cultural blunder, happens a lot in our country and other countries. In fact, you can consider some marketing examples. When in Mexico, Chevrolet decided they were going to market the Nova, they found out that Nova means won't go. That's a problem for a car marketer. Another time, Kentucky Fried Chicken learned in China that finger licking good means that we're going to bite your fingers off. not the best idea. And our words are symbols, and so we also adopt those kinds of things in our vocabulary, and we know and learn that symbols and words mean things. So, for example, when Gerber Baby Food decided that it was going to market its product in a country that was largely illiterate. It couldn't figure out why its market share was declining. Well, it soon learned that the custom in the country was to put the content of the container on the front of the product. And if you know Gerber baby food, there's a picture of a baby on the front of their It doesn't happen just in the United States either. Consider a Swedish company whose name was Locum. And Locum decided that it was going to have fun with a holiday, and it was going to change its marketing so that it replaced the O in its name with a heart. I will leave you with the American interpretation of that particular advertising campaign. When we consider what Justice Holmes had to say, I think that as Toastmasters and as speakers, we can all appreciate that the skin of our living thoughts and the contents and the words do matter, particularly for Toastmasters, and how you say it is something that we all ought to be pretty sensitive to. Thank you.